History is full of mysteries, objects that turn up where they shouldn't be, telling a story that doesn't fit the official timeline. In 1929, deep within the dusty archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a discovery was made that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the age of exploration. It was a fragment of a world map, meticulously drawn on gazelle skin. The cartographer was a famous Ottoman admiral and mapmaker named Piri Reis, and the date was 1513. At first glance, it was a masterpiece of Renaissance cartography, showing the coasts of Europe, Africa, and a surprisingly accurate depiction of South America. But as scholars looked closer, their excitement turned to disbelief. There, at the very bottom of the map, was a stretch of land that looked eerily familiar, yet impossibly out of place. What they were looking at was a coastline that, by all modern understanding, should have been completely unknown in the 16th century. It was a landmass connected to the southern tip of South America, stretching eastward. This wasn't just some fantasy land drawn to fill the empty space at the bottom of the world. The coastline had bays, inlets, and peninsulas that were too specific, too detailed to be a guess. The experts were stumped. The official discovery of Antarctica wasn't until 1821, more than 300 years after Piri Reis inked this chart. How could an Ottoman admiral, working in a workshop centuries before the first polar expeditions, possibly know what this frozen continent looked like? It was a cartographic ghost, a whisper from a time that wasn't supposed to exist. The real shock came when they compared the Piri Reis map to modern geographical knowledge. The land depicted wasn't just Antarctica, it was Antarctica without its ice. The massive ice sheet that covers the continent today, in some places over a mile thick, was completely absent from this 16th century drawing. The map showed a coastline that has been buried under ice for thousands, if not millions of years. This single piece of animal hide posed a radical question. Was it possible that someone, long before recorded history, had seen and mapped the Antarctic continent when it was a green and temperate land? The implications were staggering, suggesting a level of ancient knowledge and exploration that history books had never even dreamed of. The map became an instant anomaly, a puzzle that couldn't be easily dismissed. It wasn't a crude sketch, it was a sophisticated portolan chart, designed for navigation with remarkable accuracy in its known regions. The longitude, a notoriously difficult problem for sailors until the 18th century, was surprisingly well plotted. This level of skill only deepened the mystery of its southern sections. If the known parts of the world were drawn with such care, why would the unknown part be so detailed yet so fantastical? Or was it not a fantasy at all? The Piri Reis map was more than just an old chart. It was a direct challenge to our historical narrative, a silent testament to a forgotten age of discovery. So what exactly does this ancient map show? When you lay the Piri Reis map alongside a modern seismic map of Antarctica, one that uses radar to see through the ice to the landmass beneath, the similarities are astonishing. The coastline depicted on the 1513 map closely corresponds to what we now know as Queen Maud Land, specifically the Princess Martha Coast. The bays and islands shown on Piri Reis's chart are not visible today, buried under a colossal sheet of ice. Yet they match the subglacial topography that modern science has only recently been able to reveal. It's as if the original source for this map was created by someone flying over the continent before the last ice age began to grip it. This wasn't a one-off anomaly either. In 1531, another cartographer named Oronteus Phineas published his own world map. And there, sitting at the bottom of the globe, was a fully realized Antarctic continent. Unlike the Piri Reis fragment, the Oronteus Phineas map showed the entire landmass. It was the right general size and shape, but again it was depicted with no ice. Even more incredibly, it showed mountains, valleys, and flowing rivers, features that are now completely hidden. Modern surveys have since confirmed the existence of these subglacial mountain ranges and riverbeds, right where Phineas drew them nearly 500 years ago. The mystery was getting deeper. Two different mapmakers, working in the 16th century, seemed to possess information that was impossible for them to have. The level of detail is what makes these maps so compelling and so strange. The Oronteus Phineas map, for example, shows the Ross Sea, which is now filled with the massive Ross ice shelf, as a deep gulf with several large river estuaries emptying into it. This is a geographical reality that no one could have known until the advent of 20th century seismic sounding technology. It raises a fundamental question that mainstream history struggles to answer. How? How could these cartographers, limited by wooden ships and simple astronomical tools, map a continent that was not only undiscovered, but also in a geographical state that hadn't existed for millennia? The evidence points to something extraordinary. This isn't just a matter of lucky guesswork. The mathematical projections used to draw these maps were also highly advanced for their time. Some researchers, like the late Professor Charles Hapgood, argued that the maps were based on a sophisticated spherical trigonometry that European cartographers were only just beginning to grasp. Hapgood's theory was that both Piri Reis and Oronteus Phineas were not the original authors of this information, but were instead copying from much, much older source maps. These source maps, he believed, must have been created by a highly advanced, unknown ancient civilization that possessed a global understanding of geography long before anyone else. A lost seafaring people who charted the entire world, including an ice-free Antarctica. So where did Piri Reis get his information? Thankfully, he didn't leave us completely in the dark. In the margins of his famous map, he wrote detailed notes about his sources. He was a compiler, a collector of cartographic knowledge. He claimed to have used about 20 different source maps. Some of them were contemporary, drawn by Portuguese explorers. Others, however, were far more ancient. He specifically mentioned using maps drawn in the age of Alexander the Great, which would date them back to the 4th century BC. This claim alone pushes the timeline of advanced cartography back by more than 1,000 years. But his most intriguing note concerns a map that he said once belonged to Christopher Columbus himself. Piri Reis wrote that he had consulted a captured Spanish sailor who had sailed with Columbus. This sailor allegedly had one of Columbus's own secret charts which showed lands to the west long before he discovered them. This suggests that even Columbus may have been guided by ancient knowledge following a map to a destination he already knew existed. If these ancient maps from libraries like Alexandria survived long enough, they could have contained knowledge from an even earlier forgotten era of human history. This leads us to two fascinating competing theories. The first is the lost civilization hypothesis championed by Hapgood and others. This theory posits that a sophisticated maritime culture, perhaps the mythical Atlantis, mapped the globe during the last ice age when Antarctica's coast was free of ice. When their civilization collapsed, fragments of their knowledge survived in hidden archives like the Library of Alexandria. Over centuries, this knowledge was passed down and eventually found its way into the hands of 16th century mapmakers like Piri Reis. The second theory suggests a continuous secret tradition of knowledge passed down through elite groups of scholars, navigators, and mystics. Think of organizations like the Knights Templar or other secretive societies that salvaged ancient texts. The knowledge of Antarctica's geography was a closely guarded secret preserved through a chain of initiates over thousands of years. It was never mainstream knowledge, but it was always there waiting for someone like Piri Reis to access it. Either way, the Admiral's notes confirm one thing: he didn't invent it. He inherited it. Whenever you find a mystery this profound, you eventually run into whispers of a cover-up. The story of the Antarctic maps is no exception. The narrative takes a sharp turn in the mid-20th century, right after World War II. In 1946, the United States Navy launched a massive expedition to Antarctica called Operation High Jump. Officially, it was a scientific mission to train personnel and test equipment in frigid conditions. But you know, the scale of the operation was enormous. Over 4,700 men, a carrier, and a fleet of ships and aircraft. The mission was planned to last for 6 to 8 months, but was abruptly cut short after just 8 weeks, with the fleet returning home under mysterious circumstances. Rumors have swirled for decades about what really happened during Operation High Jump. The expedition's leader, Admiral Richard E. Byrd, gave a cryptic interview to a Chilean newspaper upon his return, allegedly speaking of a new enemy that can fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. While mainstream accounts dismiss these quotes, they have fueled a powerful conspiracy theory that the expedition encountered something unexpected and highly advanced in Antarctica, possibly related to ancient ruins or even hidden technology. Some believe that whatever they found was so world-altering that governments have been actively suppressing information about Antarctica ever since, classifying any further discoveries related to its anomalous past. This theory gains more traction when you hear about other maps that have reportedly gone missing. There are persistent accounts from researchers that both Russian and Argentine archives once held other ancient maps showing a similar ice-free Antarctica. However, when modern investigators have tried to access these documents, they have been told the maps are lost, misplaced, or were never there to begin with. Is it just poor record-keeping, or is it part of a deliberate effort to keep this knowledge out of the public domain? If a government did find conclusive proof of a lost civilization in Antarctica, it would rewrite not just history, religion, and science. That's a powerful motive for secrecy. The idea of a cover-up might sound like something out of a movie, but the stakes are incredibly high. The existence of an advanced prehistoric civilization would shatter the foundations of modern history, religion, and science. It would mean that we are a species with amnesia, that a great chapter of our own story has been erased. In that context, the idea that powerful institutions might want to control the release of such information doesn't seem so far-fetched. Whether through the sudden termination of Operation High Jump or the convenient disappearance of crucial evidence, the story of Antarctica is shadowed by the possibility that we are only being told what we are allowed to know. In recent years, the mystery of the Piri Reis map has only intensified thanks to the very technology that should have solved it. Modern satellite imaging and ice-penetrating radar have given us an unprecedented look at the continent beneath the ice. And honestly, what they are finding continues to validate the strange features of these ancient charts. Satellite data has confirmed the subglacial river systems and the precise contours of the coastline that were depicted on the Orontius Phineas map. Every new piece of data gathered by NASA and other space agencies seems to add another layer of credibility to the idea that these maps are based on real, ancient surveys. It's kind of a paradox. Our most advanced technology is proving that this knowledge existed centuries before any of our technology was invented. This convergence of ancient maps and modern data forces us to reconsider what is possible. It challenges the linear, progressive view of history that we are all taught in school. The idea that humanity started with primitive tools and slowly, steadily advanced to where we are today. These maps suggest that history might be more cyclical, with great peaks of knowledge and achievement followed by dark ages where that knowledge is lost, only to be rediscovered later. What other secrets from our past have been forgotten? The Piri Reis map could be just one small fragment of a much larger lost library of global knowledge, a single clue to a puzzle we are only just beginning to piece together. The implications are truly mind-bending. If ancient mariners mapped Antarctica when it was temperate, it would mean that our timeline of climate change and human civilization is profoundly wrong. Geologists say the ice sheet has been in place for millions of years, but some alternative theories suggest a catastrophic pole shift or other event could have caused a rapid freeze much more recently within the span of human civilization. If that's true, then the world before that cataclysm would have been very different from our own. A world where explorers could sail to a green Antarctica, a world whose story is waiting to be rediscovered beneath the ice. Ultimately, the Piri Reis map remains an enigma, a beautiful and unsettling artifact that defies easy explanation. It sits in the Topkapi Palace today not just as a relic of Ottoman naval power, but as a question mark hanging over the entire story of the human race. It invites us to be curious, to challenge the accepted narrative, and to imagine a past far richer and more mysterious than we ever thought possible. It reminds us that for all our modern knowledge, there are still maps to unknown territories, and that the greatest expeditions are sometimes those that take us back in time, searching for the origins of our own forgotten story.